You already know what time it is. Welcome back into the NFL with AJL, episode 77. We're live on a Wednesday. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're right here tapped in with us on the show. Hope everybody's had a great October. It is flying by us, literally that fast. We had a solid weekend of football too, especially college football as well. Sorry we couldn't hop on the show yesterday. Was actually blessed to celebrate 7 years with my beautiful lady. Shout out to Taylor Mobley, who's always in the comments. Love being able to celebrate that beautiful day with you, babe. As always, we got a packed show tonight. Georgia upsets Texas. Tennessee beats Alabama. DeAndre Hopkins, finally, it feels like, traded to what we all knew would have been the Kansas City Chiefs, and much more coming on the show tonight. As always, before we get into it, y'all please make sure to like and subscribe to the stream wherever you may be watching. Like I said, subscribe on YouTube, share the stream as well. We're going big on YouTube, as we always do when we get consistent with the content. Busted over 900 subscribers at 915. Y'all are loving the college football content, the praise I'm giving the Washington Commanders. So I want to see y'all continue to give that love, please, and thank you. Great to be blessed by you guys with the support of the show. Get in the comments. Also, the QR code is every bit of social media and podcast content. If you can't find me, you're simply not looking hard enough. As always, when he's available, we get him on the show. Jumping into the double A with my brother, Alan Spradlin, welcoming him in. What's good, man? Good to have you back in on episode 77.
It's great to be back, man. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, sir. Double A, always locked and loaded. As you guys know, we bring it to you every single week with the college football season, and this week is not going to be any different. So let's go ahead and jump right into the madness, brother. Tennessee beats Alabama 24-17 in Nashville. It was an ugly game. They come out with the win, of course. Tennessee's defense does what we expect their defense to do, and we see that offense heat up. If Nico's hitting more throws, I think this one could have been a lot uglier. We know they had some missed kicks as well, but I'll always start with you, bro. Give me some of your takeaways in this ugly but great football game to watch.
Well, if you ask me, from what I saw, the game didn't really start getting going until about the third quarter. That's when it really started to get juicy and good,
Yep.
you know?
Oh, yeah.
Bama, being the only one to score in the first half, and I think it was early on in the second quarter, I believe, Jalen Milroe throws for a touchdown. His effort was a bit concerning this week. I got to say, I think he threw a pick or two. But after that, it looked like Tennessee
very ugly.
Tennessee made the adjustments they needed to make. Nico struggled early on, as we saw. But once Heupel kind of switched lanes and was like, okay, let's shift the momentum a little bit. Let's start feeding Dylan Sampson the ball.
Right.
And that started working for them. We saw that. I kind of think they need to be a run-first team in my mind. Which, like I said, Nico made great throws when he needed to make when it really mattered, when it really counted. But Sampson, 26 carries, 2 touchdowns, end of story. That's what wins the game. Alabama is becoming sort of a one-trick pony, so to speak. Jalen Milroe, outside of Jam Miller and Kendrick Law, I mean, where are they at? You know, the defense wasn't playing as well as they needed to be. I think Bama needs to start hitting that panic button just a little bit, because look who else they got on the schedule,
Oh, yeah.
Teams that aren't going to roll over for them. So
Right.
It's going to be interesting. But yeah, those are my takeaways. I think, Tennessee earned that victory. They weren't necessarily the better ball team, but they got it done.
Yeah, Tennessee definitely earned that victory. They deserved it. And I'll even go on the counterpart, man. I had Alabama winning this, coming in. I just felt like, I almost said Saban, but I know we're out of the Saban era. It just felt like Kalen DeBoer had that edge over Josh Heupel. Alabama had been tested a little more this year than Tennessee had. And we even saw that when Tennessee got into that SEC play, that was my biggest concern, is that, number one scoring offense in the nation that we saw putting up 69, 71 points the first few weeks. That was great, but that's what they were supposed to do. And once we saw them step into that SEC play, we see the offense kind of fall apart. Nico disappears. The defense still holding their end, which is what's really kept them around this season. And I'm not going to bag on Tennessee at all, because this is a great win. This is how you adjust in the middle of the season. This is how you get better as a ball club, without question. And talking about that Tennessee defense, they stifled Alabama. They kept an eye on Jalen Milroe, who really was a non-factor in this game. We see him struggle with the ugly end zone interception. And it was just very remarkable to know that Tennessee's defense in the biggest game of the year for them actually stood up. And you even see, in the first quarter, Bama dominated time of possession 11-4. So I was like, okay, this might be one of those games where Tennessee just really gets kind of grinded out here. But we knew that Alabama wasn't necessarily the most effective at running the football. Yes, they have Milroe. Yes, they have Jam Miller as well. But when you can get their guys out in space, maybe kind of some of those broken plays, and we've seen the bag of explosive plays that Kalen DeBoer has, in his at his repertoire rather. Bama's defense making that statement early on, though, the strip of Dylan Sampson, which I was that is going to be kind of a trademark of this game. We see it 3 minutes in, the game's already rocking, getting through the first quarter. Bama does everything on a couple of critical third downs. And just as you're getting through the first few minutes of this game, you're like, yeah, this is going to be one of those games where it's just everything is going to be earned. You're going to have to fight. It's going to be gritty. Now, you could still see those secondary gaps on the backside of Alabama, which has been a problem all along. We talked about it big time coming into the Georgia game, and we see that Georgia exposed it in teams week over week. Vanderbilt, obviously South Carolina as well, who arguably should have won that football game. Tennessee was attacking it, though. Tennessee was attacking those gaps, and to see Nico miss those throws, he had 2 touchdowns early on that he overthrew, which really could have broke this game open for Tennessee. Absolutely. Like I said, Tennessee missed a couple field goals. Tennessee could have won this game. I'm not going to give a score prediction because it's kind of easy to do that hindsight coaching, but the points they left on the board, they left a 40-plus piece on the board in Nashville.
I agree.
Not leaving 40 points on the board, they could have walked out of that game with 40-plus points. They win with 27, or excuse me, they win with 24. You hit those 2 field goals, you're at 30. You get at least one of those touchdowns, you're at 36, 37. And then obviously if you hit another one, you're in the mid 40s there. To know that could have went that way, I was like, yeah, it could have been ugly for Alabama. We're having a potential different conversation about Alabama, saying that the armor's finally cracked. They fought a number 15. It definitely could have been even worse. Glad Nico's okay. We did see him go down with a little bit of injury scare in this one. We see the awful throw from the 5th-year quarterback Moore come in, throws that ugly pick. But that was a tough spot. You put him in on 3rd and 9, biggest game of the year. The guy did definitely what he could. And even as the second quarter, first half is finishing it out, just Bama and Tennessee exchanging ugly, awful drives. I mean, if it wasn't Jalen Milroe with intentional grounding and Bama not knowing the play clock a couple of times, penalties everywhere in this game. You had Nico throw a horrible interception into double coverage when he should have thrown it away. We'll definitely get to those penalties here in a second because that was massive. We saw it was the first time under Josh Heupel that Tennessee had 3 first-half turnovers, and it was against an average Alabama defense up until Alabama. They're kind of stepping up in the first half of this game, and then in the second half, outscored 17-7. So we see it bend and then finally break there. But Alabama only puts up 7 points with 3 first-half turnovers. 3 first-half turnovers from Tennessee. So being able to capitalize on that more, knowing that Alabama's going to have their work cut out for them later in the year, those are critical moments that they're going to have to get on top of. 3 straight first-half shutouts for Tennessee for the first time since '63, and of course we see it going on throughout this season as well. 10 penalties in the first half for the first time for Alabama in 20 years. 20 was it 25? I want to be that doesn't feel accurate. No, 26. Let me get it right. 26 assessed penalties in this game for
1998
210 yards. It was crazy to see. Obviously we know the pedigree of Alabama and Nick Saban. It's not necessarily there anymore, but there still are some effects of it. And of course, when you see performances like this, multiple penalties, you have 15 penalties from Alabama, you just cannot win a ball game like that. Give me 1 second. I'm going to turn my air up real quick.
Ironically, man, now that you mentioned that 26 years, it's funny that you say that because Tennessee won the national championship 26 years ago. That's funny.
Yeah. And 26 assessed penalties totally in this game. It was just wild. I mean, no discipline from either side. And you feel more shocked to see it from Bama than you do from Tennessee. But as the half is finishing out, neither team was running the ball well. You have a defensive battle with the chance for Tennessee to be winning, but the overthrows from Nico obviously stall that out. And then the running game wakes up for both teams. Bama's running the ball well. Tennessee's running the ball well. 6 rushes and 1 pass on the touchdown drive for Tennessee. Of course, Dylan Sampson coming in, a couple of touchdowns in this game, 3 touchdowns in the overtime win against Florida last week as well. You see Bama come out on a drive with 7 straight runs in this one. And, once you saw Bama go up 10-7, you kind of started feeling that sting of Tennessee missing those couple of field goals. Obviously, Alabama missed all of one also. But then finally, after 3 quarters, Nico was kind of transition in between words there. Nico took all of 3 quarters to hit a deep route on Bama's secondary. They punished them with Dylan Sampson. He obviously makes up for the fumble early on with the 2 touchdowns. Big strip from Alabama early on in the game. I was very shocked to see, okay, that's how Alabama's defense is going to come out in this one. And it was just really a battle of who can run the ball better in the second half. No deep shots from Jalen Milroe, too. You were able to tell, okay, Alabama respects his Tennessee secondary, and Milroe struggled with that defense, 2 turnovers as well.
Right.
Chime in here, Alan, if you might think so. It kind of felt like I was watching Georgia and Alabama with all the deep shots from Tennessee, no catches from most of them.
I'm just the same way.
They're cracking them on the back end,
right,
in the secondary. Go ahead.
It felt like a parody of the UGA game. It really did, to an extent. Yeah. And heck, UGA Texas felt almost kind of like that too, in a way, with Texas being on the receiving end of that. But not to get into that too soon. But yeah, I think Tennessee put the pressure on them, knew that they had weaknesses in the secondary, and they just kept attacking, you had said.
Yep, 100%. Sorry, I was turning up my my air. I didn't know you're good. The jerseys behind me kind of go crazy. But yeah, no, totally agree with you. Tennessee's pressure bothered Alabama all night long, and that was very clear. You got to shout out Tennessee for making Jalen Milroe a non-factor, pressuring him, getting in that backfield. Didn't feel like he had any quarterback runs that really broke off, at this point in the game to really take it over. Once Tennessee started establishing the run with Dylan Sampson, then they continued being consistent. They didn't go away from those big pass attempts, which is what's very vital. It's like I said when Georgia played Bama. You don't stop drawing up big pass plays when you're down 30-7. You expect your personnel to hit those plays because those are going to be the plays that dig you out.
Where you need to be.
Exactly. Obviously, Georgia got in front there for a little bit. We know what happens with Ryan Williams. Georgia's just not able to tackle in that
Freak
game.
Play.
But yeah, exactly. Tennessee hitting on 2 big throws in this game. Even though, like I said, it wasn't a lot, they stayed faithful with it. They started running Dylan Sampson downhill. This needs to be Tennessee's game plan because they're going to be in more games later on in the year that are going to require this type of game plan against Kentucky. Exactly. Against UGA. They have to play Vanderbilt to finish out the year. I know it's going to change a lot over the last 5 weeks of college football, but that has to be their game plan going forward. I know you're probably a little confused, and then we'll get on to Georgia and Texas in the final 2 minutes of this game, maybe as anybody. So there was a penalty. It was 4th and 7, penalty on Alabama. I think it was unsportsmanlike conduct. Pops it back to 4th and 22. I want your take on Kalen DeBoer going against the analytics, despite being pissed about it in the past, and really attempting a 4th and 22 in Nashville in this game.
Gutsy call. I mean, what else can you say? 4th and 22 and you're going for it? Whatever.
Yeah. When I saw it, man, I can't lie. I don't call coaches stupid or not wise because I don't like talking about any human like that, but especially when we get on here, the platform that we have, talking about these guys, this is their career. Yes, they don't necessarily listen to us, but, we don't want to be like that towards these guys that we're talking about here on the show. I'm right there with you. I question it as well.
We're not,
Exactly. I just thought it was an insanely stupid situational play. Analytics are against you. Again, you felt pissed off earlier in the year, not going with analytics. You're inside your own 20. I'll just tell you, Alan, that showed Kalen DeBoer did not trust his defense at that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
His defense was not trusted at that point because Dylan Sampson, he was hammering him, dude. He was coming downhill. Hands were on the hips of the Alabama defense. You could tell they were tired. They were getting outmanned. They were getting out physicaled. And like I said, it was an ugly game to see, but, Tennessee at the end of it, they're the better team. They come away with the win as well. First time Bama has 2 losses going into November since 2007. Like we said, man, you can't win a game with 15 penalties and 2 turnovers, even though they did win the turnover battle as well. There was one more point here. Oh, so
Tennessee
more.
had better third down conversion, didn't they? I'm pretty sure.
Yes. I want to say
Yeah.
that they did. I'm
That
actually
wins
about
football
to.
games too.
Yes, absolutely. Anytime that you can do better on third down than the other team. Yep, 6 for 14 for Tennessee, 3 for 14 for Bama. Bama was 1 for 2 on fourth down as well. And you know both of these teams were tired, man. I mean, you know they were. Both of these guys,
Absolutely.
79 plays for Bama, 71 plays for Tennessee as well. But, just one quick thing here before we get into Georgia, Texas. We now have another incident of Kalen DeBoer not only cracking under the pressure, which I'm still rooting for the guy because he's been a winner everywhere and there's going to be an adjustment period, but
It's
also the lack of discipline now coming back out. You have players shooting fake jump shots in the middle of a quarterback sneak that's being ran by y'all. Malachi Moore incident, 15 penalties. I mean, it is concerning. I'll continue to be a Kalen DeBoer fan. I'll continue to give criticism where it's due. Obviously, praise as well. But it's getting questionable. It's getting very questionable. You even said yourself, panic meter for Alabama. Kind of thought so after the last game that they played, and obviously the last few games that they've played as well. But yeah, Kalen DeBoer is, it's kind of just a slow deterioration of that culture here. And I'm not going to say that in 7 or 8 games, Alabama's, complete culture is thrown out of the window. No. But it is incremental. It does happen in layers. It does happen in steps. And in a game like football, it's not going to all just come to a head. Yep, it literally jab after jab. And it's not going to necessarily come to a head as quick as some people would like it to be. Go ahead. You got some final words?
Yeah, so advice for Bama. Make adjustments now because I'm going to tell you, Mizzou's not going to roll over for you.
Nope.
Neither is LSU. Neither is Oklahoma. We know what all 3 of those teams are about.
And they got to play Auburn to finish the year.
Auburn, the Iron Bowl. Anything happens in that game, we know. Tiger fans don't care if it's the only game they win.
Yep.
That's Kalen DeBoer's first Iron Bowl. So.
Damn, I didn't even think about it like that, bro. But you are 100% correct.
It's gonna be crazy.
Yep.
I'm not saying Auburn's gonna win. I'm not saying that at all because Auburn's struggling this year, as we know. But that loss to Vanderbilt, that showed us that hey, they're not the Bama of long ago. They're trying to learn who they are, get their identity as a team. Just make the adjustments now, especially with Jalen Milroe.
Oh, yeah. Jalen Milroe kind of starting to show us those things that we saw last year, a little bit as well.
The secondary.
Right. Yeah. The secondary is 100% the biggest problem.
That's a target.
They got 5 games left on the schedule. Alabama takes on Missouri at home. Alabama's at home hosting Missouri. Alabama's on the road against LSU. Their bye week's coming up after the Mizzou game, looks like. Alabama's at home against Mercer. Alabama's on the road against Oklahoma. And then Alabama's at home against Auburn. So I would say outside of the Mercer game, and of course the Oklahoma game as well, just because Oklahoma is completely broken, 3 out of the last 5 games, Alabama's going to be tested. With the way Alabama played over the last few weeks, they could very well be on a 4-game losing streak.
Very well.
The way they played against Georgia, Vanderbilt beats them outright. If South Carolina hits a throw on the 2-point conversion, that's an L. And now they finally meet their match with Tennessee.
Because UGA should have won that game, but they didn't. That's literally how it went for me. Because Alabama won that first half. But after that, it's all dogs.
Yep. 100%, dude. Speaking of them dogs, I don't give a piss about nothing but the dogs. Georgia officially welcomes Texas to the SEC, upsetting them 30-15 in a game where nobody thought Georgia could win. Everybody's picking Texas.
I even picked Texas.
Potential game of the year. And Georgia's tested yet again. And they meet the test. They pass the test. They accelerate past the benchmark that is the Texas Longhorns, who now reside in the SEC. And on top of everything, we did it in Austin. I'll just say this after that game before I let you go with your takeaways. Imagine if that thing was in Sanford Stadium.
It would have been.
Imagine if it was in Athens between the hedges.
You would have had earthquake meters going off.
100%. I want to know what your thoughts were on this game. What do you think Texas learned? Give me everything you got, bro. I was
All right.
there from snap to snap.
Right. This was definitely a learning experience for the Longhorns. It was a humbling experience, say the least. I'll get into Texas's side of the ball here in just a moment. I want to speak for the Dogs right now. ETN and the defense won this game. Hands down. To me, ETN and the defense were the contributing factors. Carson Beck with another dismal performance, 3 interceptions.
Yep.
That leaves a lot to be desired. Like, that's the edge put tons of pressure on those quarterbacks. Tons. I think, what was it? Michael Williams and Jalen Walker. They were eating, man. They were
eating that Texas O-line alive. 7 sacks, 10 TFLs, dude.
Yeah, they combined for 11 tackles and 5 sacks, I think. You know, it was insane. UGA was able to win the line of scrimmage. Third quarter, we get to where Texas starts to show us what they're about. All first half, it's UGA everywhere. The horns look like deer in headlights at the first half.
I thought you were about to say they look like deer in general. I was like, damn, he just did them like that. He just downgraded them. You ain't Longhorn, bro. You're a deer.
You're deer antlers. That's So
damn.
In similar
incoming
fashion,
Texas fans pissed in the comments.
Right. Yep. Get at me. Talk mess about my nose.
That was good, bro. That was amazing.
But in similar fashion to that Bama game with Georgia, we see the third quarter. Third quarter is a big thing. You know, this is where UGA starts to go a little quiet. The horns start to pick up. Maybe they could come back into this game. Maybe they can possibly rally to win. Once again, you know, the Dogs come back in the fourth quarter and they just pretty much close the book. It's over with at that point. You know, the last things I'll say before I let you get on in it, Carson Beck's performance. The Dogs have to focus on that. Just like Alabama has to focus on their issues with the secondary. This is UGA's problem.
Right.
Not talking mess about Carson Beck. I think he's a great quarterback when he can be. But the interceptions are bad. The deep ball is
in the
great.
Last 4 games.
The deep ball is great. You make those throws when it counts, but you got to get better about throwing into coverages and making better choices with the football. If you want to win another championship, that's what you need to focus on. And I said, I still think UGA and Texas are the 2 best teams in college football next to Ohio State and Oregon. Those are the 2 best teams to me. But I think we're going to see this matchup again in the SEC championship.
Yeah. Yeah, very well so. It doesn't feel like Alabama's going to be pushing there. They've got a gauntlet to get through for the rest of the year as well.
Absolutely.
This was a heck of a game, bro. It was a little ugly also because of how, half to half it was, but Georgia does their thing. I'm not mad about anything but the fact that Carson Beck cannot stop turning the ball over. Okay? 8 interceptions in the last 4 games. 5 in the last 2. 2 against Mississippi State, 3 here against Texas, a 4th one that should have been called. It was the potential second one of the game. The ball hit the ground.
Baby the football.
First and foremost, I'll say shout out to my Bulldogs because I was nervous about this one. But the sole reason I picked Georgia to win this game was not because of the offense, was not because of the defense. Hell, Sark matches up with Kirby very well.
Yeah, I think so.
It was the fact that Texas had not been tested this year. Don't give me that BS about the Michigan win because they're not anything now. And Oklahoma's as broken as they can be.
Yep.
At the time, the Michigan win, take it for what it is. We figured out quickly what Michigan is about.
Right.
After Oklahoma played these last few weeks, and once they subbed Michael Hopkins in against what game was that Michael Hopkins got his first glimpse of action? Was it Oklahoma? I don't remember. But we've seen Oklahoma fall apart over the last. I don't think so. I can't remember. No. But we've seen Oklahoma falling apart, over these last few weeks. And I was just like, who has Texas played?
Right. I hear you.
And that was just my thing. And again, you can look at the points in the season that they beat the teams that they did. But understanding the nuances of Texas, how they've beat the teams that they did, and just knowing flat out that they had not played a team of Georgia's caliber up until this point. Obviously, Carson Beck is a major issue. You cannot have him throwing that many interceptions. His decision making is by far his weakest trait. That is something that has to be worked on. He will not be a highly coveted pick in the NFL draft, despite the quarterback class, if he continues to play like that. Clearly, Georgia is more efficient when they take the ball out of Carson's hands and put it in Trevor Etienne's belly. Once Trevor started rolling downhill and getting his number called, dogs were in control. Dogs are in absolute control. And kind of like with Tennessee, if you can keep that vibe going, because Georgia's going to have tougher games. And we look at everyone's regular season. If you're in the playoffs in a 12 team, you're not going to play an easy game. Okay, We've seen how college football has been this year. You're not going to play an easy game, even if you have that first round bye.
Absolutely.
So, it's a lot for Georgia to be able to fix this, because it's not going to be sustainable or winnable football if you don't. I still like Carson as a guy. I think he's very, 50-50 north and south type of player. He's got a huge arm, but he's got to be able to dial in the accuracy. Clearly, Georgia's defense was the big talk of the town here. 7 sacks between Quinn Ewers and the little Arch Manning fiasco that we saw there. 10 tackles for loss as well. The ugly interception thrown by Quinn Ewers, just really not even understanding the play call. If you look fundamentally at what that play call was supposed to be, Quinn Ewers just did not execute well. The Georgia defender jumps underneath it. Quinn Ewers was supposed to make a read immediately. He didn't. His feet get kind of shuffled, and the rest is history. Texas's offense did, start to click up at times. Of course, we did see that, and they start to inch back into the game, which I expected. Georgia's up 23-0 going into the half, and I'm like, okay, I like this, but I want to see more. And that's why when I saw Bobo still dialing up those big plays, I'm like, I understand he wants to run up the score, but clearly at this point in this time, it's a little different than Georgia-Bama. You kind of do stop calling those good plays when you're up by almost 3 possessions and you're against a team like Texas, who has played the pedigree of football that they have. That's why I appreciated. Yep, I appreciated the game of the change of the game plan. We start putting the ball in Trevor's belly, and he just starts running downhill. And this really felt like, from just my personal opinion, this really felt like the Trevor Etienne breakout game.
Yeah,
this felt like the Trevor Etienne arrival. Are we going to be able to lean on this guy more and more as time goes on? And, clearly, right, 3 rushing touchdowns in this one. I actually want to go back and look at his game log real quick, because I want to say this is just how this dude's smile is cracking me up. This is just how he's had to play. 5 for 78, 19 for 79, 12 for 55, 16 for 88, 11 for 35, 19 for 87. The Auburn game, yeah, you could say he came out there, which was nice. The Kentucky game, he definitely, we had to lean on him there, but he didn't have any touchdowns in that game. He just got his first touchdown in the Alabama game. 1 touchdown against Bama, 2 against Auburn, 1 against Mississippi State, 3 against Texas. So this was definitely the Trevor Etienne breakout game, and I want to see more of this. I want to see Bobo lean into this more. I really do. Absolutely. I didn't like how Georgia didn't do anything with the second strip sack on Quinn Ewers. 3 straight pass plays. Come on, we're just talking about Mike Bobo being Mike Bobo, and here he goes, doing his thing. The fact that Georgia was able to escape the first quarter with 3 turnovers and a lead is very impressive. I enjoyed the strip sacks on Quinn Ewers. I definitely thought those were very reputable and worth writing home about. I want to talk about the Arch Manning situation, because some people are overblowing it. Oh, it's a quarterback controversy. This is what Sarkisian didn't need to do. Quinn Ewers is a senior. How dare you break his confidence? Quinn Ewers was 5 for 11 for 38 yards in that game. Quinn Ewers looked bad. So Sark said, come on, calm down. We're going to pull you out for a couple drives. Let you just compose yourself.
Exactly
what's the first thing that Arch does when he goes in? Quieting down the crowd. Because him, as a redshirt freshman, understands that the crowd, even if you're at home, it can play a big part. So Arch was already kind of amped up as he came in,
Throw a beer can,
smart ass. Yep, we'll definitely get to that too. You see Arch come in, and I'm like, look, they're scared, dude. They're, I'm just talking trash as a Georgia fan. I'm like, they are shaking in their boots.
Joe Rogan.
But then we see Quinn. Right. We see Joe Rogan, Drew Brees, Matthew McConaughey. It was definitely a celebrity packed night. Yeah, Tony Hinchcliffe as well. Absolutely amazing. But you see Arch come in, and I'm just like, look, they're shaking in their boots. They are literally trembling right now. Arch comes in, doesn't really have much of an effect on the game either. I want to make sure I have his stats accurate here
Arch
real
had
quick.
-1 yard, didn't he?
Yeah, 3 for 6, 19 yards. Arch Manning was sacked, 4 carries, -1 yard, but some of the sacks do play into that as well. But, the fact that they tried to throw us off a little bit with Arch, maybe think that we weren't expecting that game plan. First of all, we know that Texas has 2 of the best quarterbacks in the country. And second of all, we were ready for it. Georgia stepped up. They were there for the occasion, and they absolutely shut down whatever Arch Manning was trying to bring to the table as well. So, wire to wire. Right. Wire to wire, bro. And then we'll talk about some of these big time calls. Correct me if I'm wrong. The way this game watched, it didn't feel close. Yes, Texas comes back. They have 15 unanswered after Georgia puts up 23 unanswered. But even after the overturned defensive pass interference with the beer bottles getting on the field and Carson Beck's third interception, even though Texas scored after that, Georgia still stood up. So to me,
they weren't going anywhere.
As a Georgia fan who has blown big games in the past, whether it's a national championship, SEC championship, trap game, no lead can really be too big unless you're up by like 35 plus, right? 23-0, I was like, great. 17-0, I was like, great. 10-0, I was like, great. Let's keep it going. Let's run the score up. This is Sark. This is Quinn Ewers. This is Isaiah Bond. This is the number 1 team in the country in Austin. Keep running up the damn score.
Right, absolutely.
So, when you go back and you kind of decompress from the emotions and you watch it all, it didn't necessarily feel like a close football game. And I know people are going to jump in the comments. You're just saying that because you're wearing a Georgia jersey. No, genuinely. That was Georgia's game from the beginning quarter.
The score doesn't
say the beginning quarter because Beck looked bad in the beginning quarter. But once Georgia hit their stride and back half of that first quarter and that second quarter, oh yeah, Georgia's looking good. They were definitely hitting their stride. Let's talk about the biggest story of the game, arguably, besides the game itself, the overturned defensive pass interference call, Texas littering the field. That is Bush League. That is classless.
Yes.
We know it happens, but there's no excuse for it. I think Texas got fined $250,000, $500,000 for it. That's pocket change to them. The boosters will probably pay that within a matter of minutes.
Matthew McConaughey was like, here.
Give me what are you thinking as you see the litter hit the field? Like, what are your thoughts as that's happening?
I'm like, oh no. And I couldn't believe, well, I'm not going to say I couldn't believe it. It was very plausible for what they were doing. It's college football. And they were mad. They were pissed, for lack of a better term. I get it. But when Sark comes on the field, it's like, no, stop, please stop. Not just for the university, but like, come on, integrity of our fans. People are going to think we get down like that, and we're not. That's the vibe I was getting when he came out onto the field. Even the quarterbacks and some of the other players were like, no, stop, please stop that. And was the call right? Did they get it right? Who's to say? I'm not an official. At the end of the day, I can understand Kirby's frustration because you couldn't review it, but you overturn it. I could see why Kirby lit that referee up on the side. I saw him giving him 4.
Oh yeah. Here's my thing. And it's the same across the board with NFL or college football. Penalties are not reviewable, but turnovers are. Every turnover, every score, every play in the final 2 minutes, and just about every play in the fourth quarter that's mattered,
right?
Or any play in that last period of play, it's reviewable. I wasn't, again, optics, bad PR move. They make the call, fans are pissed, trash on the field, then they overturn it, right? So. Right. It's a horrible look. And everyone, they're setting a precedence. You throw trash on the field and you can get your call overturned. No, I don't think that's the case at all. I'm not going to take away from the fact that the SEC might be at an all-time high for bad officiating.
Yeah.
But that's another story. That's another show. That's another conversation.
Yeah.
Every turnover is reviewable. I was at a party watching the game, and I'm like, if I'm a Georgia fan at home, like if Georgia's playing this in Sanford Stadium, we're on defense, right? Flip everything. We're losing, but we're at home. Texas is up. We need a turnover. If they make that call and then I see the replay, I'm not in favor of that call. That was not a good call. When they overturned it, that was the right call to make. I am a fan of good officiating. Being a New Orleans Saints fan, experiencing the no call, that was horrible. And really in every moment, but especially from that moment on, I was like, just give me fair officiating, please. That's all I'm asking you for. So I wasn't mad that they overturned it. I know both coaches were pissed. It was definitely a swing of emotions. They should have never called it. It was a lot of hand checking in the middle of the route, and they should have just let him play. Yeah. Obviously, the pick was what it was. They almost run it back. They go and score the touchdown. But I don't think this is a thing of setting the precedence. You know, I was more upset about the 2 ticky-tack targeting calls. The first one was a little more understandable. The second one, I was like, okay, the more you look at it, the more you're not going to like it, right? Anytime the defender lowers their head slightly and you see 2 helmets kind of pop up like that, they're going to review it. It's their job. They create too much liability to not possibly identify plays like that. But then you try to hold us out on the end zone with Trevor Etienne's rushing touchdown. The final one to give us 30 points. Yeah, that's okay. We'll run it again and we'll get in there. But that was clear as day on the review that we were in there. So go ahead. Try to take these things from us. Go ahead and try to spoil these calls. Try to do whatever you can. Right. Georgia overcame that. They overcame bad quarterback play. They put arguably the best defense in the country on the field against the best defense in the country that was giving up 6 points. And they did what they had to do. Kirby Smart with the edge over Sark, and the rest was history, man. I mean, what a game, though, right?
Oh, yeah. It was a spectacle for sure.
An absolute banger in the SEC.
Next to Ohio State, Oregon, that was close.
I mean, to think we've already had Georgia, Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Alabama, Tennessee, Ohio State, Oregon, already halfway through the college football year. LSU and Ole Miss go to overtime. Yep. Kentucky beating Ole Miss. Miami struggling a little bit like we're about to get into here. It's just been a great college football season, easily the best college football season that I've seen by far.
You know what I don't understand?
All right, man. No, go ahead. You got it.
Lost to Florida. How do you lose to Florida, Kentucky? Come on, man.
Yeah, that's rough. That's very rough. I mean,
Sunbelt Billy kept his job.
Kentucky is that team. You know, we talked about it. They're scrappy. They're going to be tough with you. You know, they might not be the most fundamentally sound, and they might not come away with the W. But at the end of the day, like, again, they're going to be scrappy, but they're going to lose some games that they probably shouldn't have. And you can argue right there that Kentucky Florida game is a prime example. Yeah, is the prime example of that. I'm on the verge of calling the Miami Hurricanes the Miami Concern-icanes, man. The last 3 weeks for the Miami Hurricanes have been very concerning. And ironically, this is when they have stepped into ACC play. We see them come into the year, blow out Florida 41-17. Blow out Florida A&M 56-9. Blow out Ball State 62-0. They wipe South Florida 50-15. But then we talked about Miami Virginia Tech game. They win by 4 in a controversial, what I think was correct, Hail Mary call. They muster a 21-point comeback against Cal. And then they fight tooth and nail to beat Louisville. Only one of these games Miami played at home, and that was against Virginia Tech. So it is a little concerning. It's concerning. 3 straight games of ACC play against what felt like much inferior teams. Now we know we know the Louisville game can be a little bit of a rivalry there. We know when you step into SEC play and people have tape on you when you've blown out teams time after time, like you're going to have those games or this stretch of games where teams the tape is like photographic memory for them when they're playing you because they know what is coming. What do you think's been the problem with Miami? And do you think they're going to continue to struggle like this going forward?
I do think they struggle like this going forward because they're only going to have to play outside of Syracuse, and I think Stanford is one of them. Outside of those two,
Florida State, Duke, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, Syracuse to finish out the year.
Right. Florida State, we're not going to, I'm not even going to get myself there.
Rivalry
we're not rivalry game. It does mean a lot, but I don't see us winning it. Now with, Chrome and Hawk and Brooklyn, I think we could do a little bit better had been doing, but I don't see us winning that one. But I want to talk about Duke and Georgia Tech, two potentially dangerous teams. They could upset the apple cart if they push the right buttons. Because to me, like you said, Miami is getting more and more fragile week to week, it seems like. People are getting their number. They're starting to figure out what they're about.
To put on that superhero cape every damn week.
That's what I was about to get to. They're relying so heavily on Cam Ward. It's like, all right, at what point does your defense step up and not allow points?
Yep.
You can't put it all on him.
Yep.
Is he a Heisman contending quarterback? Absolutely. Is he a great quarterback? For sure. But you can't rely on him to win games. Now, they could very easily go undefeated. I'm not saying they couldn't with adjustments, but it's going to be too close for comfort like it has been these past 3 weeks, I think, if they do go undefeated. But I do have one of these teams, potentially Duke or Georgia Tech, upsetting that apple cart. Somebody is going to get them eventually. Their luck's going to run out if they don't make the adjustments they need to make. Because you got to play all phases of the game. You can't rely on one guy.
Right.
You can't.
Nope. You can't. I was trying to find the rankings for Miami defensively in the country, but that's the only thing about college football. Trying to find their stats sometimes, just the way they have them lined out, and with so many teams being in the country. But like you said, even if we don't pull the numbers, if we just straight up look at how these games have played out,
just the eye test.
Yeah, exactly. 45 given up to Louisville, 38 given up to Cal, 34 given up to Virginia Tech. It's going up every week. No, not at all. All unranked teams that I personally believe they should have been fine with. Now, again, when you play teams like Florida A&M, Ball State, and South Florida to start the year, I mean, geez, and then you got Florida State coming in. Geez, just go ahead and let them play the Miami Dolphins while you're at it. You know what I mean? We know that these teams come through.
They beat the Gators already.
Right. These teams already, they come through every year, especially the Miami being that Florida football team. But when you tee it up that way, it's like, okay, yeah, you expect them to roll through things the way that they should. But when you look at the play going throughout, the rest of the year, Duke, Georgia Tech, those can be two sneaky ones. I know the Florida State game, like you said, it's a rivalry game, not getting too much hope into that. But with as fragile as Miami has been lately, it is cause for concern. And,
Mike Norvell hasn't lost to them yet.
Right. Mike Norvell's never lost to Miami. Is this going to be an instance? Right. No, you're correct there. Is this going to be an instance where it's like USC from the last couple of years? Caleb Williams, phenomenal. One of the top picks in the draft, Heisman winner, Heisman contender. Solid coach. I got respect for Mario Cristobal with what he's doing this year, and I've respected Mario Cristobal in his tenure. We know he's had a couple of good stops in his career. But no defense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if this is going to be the story of the Miami Hurricanes, they've got to learn from USC over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
They've got to.
Especially this year.
And I like Miami, bro. I really do. I like Miami as a team because they're high-flying offense. They got a guy in Restrepo who could maybe be the best Miami receiver ever stats-wise. Yeah. Cam Ward doing ungodly things, it seems like. This guy's having an insane season, and I think he wouldn't potentially get the Heisman if Miami does go on a skid.
One of the best Miami QBs I've ever seen.
For sure. And they get one right, which you got to love. Even with Miami's schedule the way it is through the rest of the year, Alan, I'm very concerned about this team going into the playoffs because, again, level of pedigree matters.
Right.
Who you play matters. I know you can only play who's in front of you. I get that. But it doesn't mean that you've been tested enough to go play a top 12 team in college football that's going to be in the rankings. And if you don't win the ACC, you're on the road.
Yeah.
At least for the first round. Or not at least for the first round, but, you're on the road after the second round.
I got them going to the ACC.
Yeah.
I got them going
to the ACC title?
Yeah, I got them going. I got them and Clemson battling it out. But honestly, if Miami does lose, or even if they do win somehow, they're gonna face a big dog in the 12 team. They're gonna face an Ohio State. They're gonna face an Oregon. They're gonna face a Georgia. They're gonna face a Texas. Somebody like that. And we're gonna see what Miami's really about.
Yep.
Providing they don't lose some stupid game in between now and then.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope they lose to us. I mean, I don't care if we win a game for the rest of the season if I could beat Miami, but I don't think that's
That'd
going
be
to
a
happen.
solid dub.
Yeah, it would. We're not going bowling anyway, but
going bowling. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at those top teams, I mean, Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, obviously Miami's there. You got Tennessee, LSU, Clemson, they'll probably see beforehand.
Yep.
After that, you're kind of curious. My Indiana's looking great. They're undefeated.
Oh yeah, Iowa State.
Iowa State as well, for sure. And so you've got some of these teams creeping up. Ole Miss as well.
They're hungry.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you don't get that first round bye, you're playing on the road in the playoffs a good bit. And to win 4 playoff games to get all the way to the championship, if you don't get the first round bye, if you're higher up in the rankings, some of those first round teams lose, and you have a chance to get the home field advantage all the way through. But having that be an unknown, knowing how you're playing recently, knowing the level of play you've been putting not only up, but playing against, it's just a little concerning. And again, don't think that I'm a Miami hater. Don't think I've been waiting on the downfall of the Miami Hurricanes. No, I was one of the people before we came into the show this year, and as we've gotten through the year, that this team did a lot. The recruiting class was great. The transfers were great. I mean, Cam Ward was one of the most coveted prospects in the transfer portal, and Miami, out of all teams, landed him, who was a crapshoot last year.
Yeah, we fumbled the bag.
And I love what Chris Ball's being able to do, man, to really turn this team around, dude. I enjoyed having you in for the show, bro. You already know I'm about to jump into these next segment of NFL topics. Any final words before you get out of the segment of the Double A here?
Not much. I'm just glad to be back on this week. It was I really enjoyed all the topics we had tonight. They were really good ones. And talk nice about how bad my 49ers played and my Titans played.
Your Titans are just giving away assets to make the league better. And I just think the Niners need to get more healthy, bro, for sure.
They're sick.
Yeah, literally. They're sick. All right, brother. As always, I love you. It was good having you on the show. And go hop in the comments for me. And, I'll see you next week, okay?
For sure, man.
All right. See you, dog.
See ya.
Appreciate everybody jumping into episode 77 of the NFL with AJL. We just jumped out of the Double A college football segment, which we bring it to you every single week. Before we get into the back half of the show, y'all please make sure to like and share the stream wherever you may be watching. Subscribe on YouTube so you never miss a post. Hit the bell on YouTube as well so you're notified every time we have a post, whether we're planning to go live. We are live. We post a clip. You guys know the deal. As always, the QR code there in the corner of the screen, every bit of social media and podcast content. If you can't find me, if you can't find us, I promise that you're simply not looking hard enough. Please get in the comments if you want to give a super chat, a super thanks. I think it's a super sticker as well that you can give on YouTube to donate directly to the show monetarily. Definitely feel free to do that. If you want to donate on the side, feel free to DM us on social media at the NFL with AJL. No donation is too big or too small. Anything you could possibly give to the show would be greatly appreciated. And as always, we're sponsored by Buy and Sell with AJL for all your worldwide professional real estate needs. Whether you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or invest in real estate, this is the team that you need to be working with 100%. As I mentioned, they're also got their real estate meetups going in Peachtree City as well at Buy and Sell with AJL. Check them out on social media. If you're on their email newsletter, you've been seeing plenty of things come through for their marketing as well. And we're sponsored by PrayStation Online at PrayStation Online for the best gaming and worship collaboration that's on the market. You see their handle down there. If you also use code AJL at checkout, they'll hook you up with a nice little discount / offer for getting some merch. If you just want a sticker, if you want it on a hoodie, if you want it on sweats, any type of apparel, they can more than likely make it happen for you. At PlayStation Online, at Buy and Sell with AJL. I appreciate the heck out of you guys for always sponsoring the show and letting us promote your services here on the NFL with AJL. Let's go ahead and jump into the NFL segment of the show now. As the Chiefs trade for DeAndre Hopkins, they send a fourth rounder over to the Tennessee Titans, and it felt like this trade was supposed to happen, right? It felt like this was the trade we were waiting on since we saw the Chiefs last year in the opener against the Lions. And I made a video right after. If you're in tight with me on social media, I said it looks like the Chiefs should have traded for DeAndre Hopkins, because we know that they've had injuries this year between Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce aging some, Xavier Worthy still trying to gel into the offense. Obviously, Isaiah Pacheco as well. We know that the Chiefs have been beat up this year. And that's been the scariest part, is knowing that Kansas City is beat up and they're still able to perform well. Knowing that Patrick Mahomes is literally playing some of his worst football, and he's still out there putting up wins for the Kansas City Chiefs. And just to know that they are so beat up, knowing that they had to bring in a guy like Kareem Hunt, knowing that they're having to get some flexibility in Carson Steele for rushing the football, knowing that Mecole Hardman's having to punch in as well. All of the creativity that Kansas City has been showing us here lately, and the elite coaching of Andy Reid. I can't even say the elite quarterback play of Patrick Mahomes, because it hasn't been. And I'm not even going to sugarcoat it and say that it has been. When you have your leading receivers in certain games being like Samaje Perine or Noah Gray as well, again, Xavier Worthy still trying to gel with the offense, and then you bring in a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. And this is really, exactly what the Chiefs needed here. They needed a veteran presence in the receiving room. Not that Travis Kelce isn't that. Not that Rashee Rice wasn't being that for an amount of time before he dealt with his injuries. But knowing that DeAndre Hopkins felt like DeAndre Hopkins was supposed to land here. And fate always works out. The NFL gods, ball don't lie. It works out the way that it's supposed to. At least it feels like, anyways, right? Again, it felt like this should have happened last year. After the opener against the Lions, we saw the Chiefs the last couple of years without Tyreek Hill not really have that number one receiving option. Yes, Rashee was jumping in. Of course, Travis Kelce's been Travis Kelce. We've seen the insane seasons out of him. We've seen Mecole Hardman come back over in trades as well. But getting that true veteran at the wide receiver position, again, I will always give that credit to Travis Kelce. You could damn near line him up as a wide receiver. We saw how one year he was, I think it would have been number 3, number 4 in receiving yards for wide receivers, but he, qualifies as a tight end, so they kept him out of that conversation. I'm not going to come on here and say that, go ahead and sign the Chiefs up for the three-peat. This is exactly the move that they needed to get to where they need to go. No, I'm not, because they still need better play out of Patrick Mahomes, which I think bringing in a guy like DHOP will just naturally elevate Mahomes' play for sure. Give him more confidence. I know it's a receiver, and not that Mahomes needs more confidence. I know it's a receiver that Mahomes hasn't thrown to, but they're going to build that chemistry. He's going to get in the building. He's going to be on the field for the Chiefs next game and for the ensuing games, for them providing that spark, getting them through the playoffs. And hell, I hope DeAndre Hopkins wins a ring, because he definitely deserves to. He has earned that claim in the NFL. And DeAndre Hopkins, you have to shout out him for what he's put up with throughout his career. Yeah, he had a very solid quarterback in Deshaun Watson, but then the dysfunction of Houston, obviously Deshaun's out of there. You send D-Hop over to the Titans, but I forgot he made a stop with the Arizona Cardinals. DeAndre Hopkins traded to the Arizona Cardinals, looks good for a couple of years with Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray was a reputable quarterback there. Then you have DeAndre Hopkins heading over to the Titans. And it was an okay tenure. He dealt with the likes of Ryan Tannehill and Will Levis and some other quarterbacks that were able to get into that QB1 position, and even if they had the backup position activated for them as well, and get him some throws while he was in a Titans uniform. Allow him to accumulate some yards and receptions. But now with the Kansas City Chiefs, easily playing with the best quarterback he's ever played with. It might not be at the height of which Kyler and Deshaun were playing at one point in their careers, but he's with the best quarterback he's ever played with. He's with the biggest winner of a quarterback that he's ever played with. He's in the best organization that he's ever played in, with the best quarterback and with the best coach that he's ever played with. So it's just nothing but positive, 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 positive for DeAndre Hopkins. And it's nothing but positive, 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 positive for the Kansas City Chiefs as well. And as it should be, they needed a receiver to come in. They needed someone to come in and take that pressure off Mahomes. And it wouldn't be shocking if Mahomes, and it's not that Mahomes needs, pressure taken off him because he's great in adversity and that's why he is who he is, because he rises above the pressure. But we're going to see Mahomes' production more than likely uptick as well. We're going to see DeAndre Hopkins schemed into one of the best offenses in the NFL and the best offense he's ever been in. And that's without question. So I'm very happy for D-Hop. I hope the Chiefs can get him a Super Bowl ring. I hope the Chiefs really implement him into this offense where he can just snap throughout the rest of the year, really provide that stability in the receiver room, that veteran presence, that leadership. And it was a great move. I mean, a fourth rounder. I hate to see a veteran like DeAndre Hopkins pop all over the league, from the Texans to the Cardinals to the Titans and now the Chiefs. But sometimes you got to get through the ringer before you get to it. And 3 poorly ran organizations for the most part, for the most of his career, and now he's with the Chiefs. I know the guy's ecstatic, and the Chiefs are going to put him to work. It's going to be even more of a lethal offense as he steps in healthy. And as he's just an absolute weapon, some of the best hands in the NFL, one of the best contested catchers in the NFL. Absolutely no negatives here for the Kansas City Chiefs, as they really, really needed this position. The Denver Broncos blow out the New Orleans Saints on Thursday Night Football last week, 33-10. Yes, I was there. My buddy Darby and I, who y'all see, Michael Darby, jumping into the chat periodically. We drove down there for the 3rd straight year to a Saints game in New Orleans, and we were extremely disappointed, of course, with the outcome. And it's not even I want to sit here and, really talk about how bad this team is, because it's clear. They're on a 5-game losing streak. I think they now hold the longest active losing streak in the NFL, next to the Patriots, because we know the Jags beat the Patriots. The Jags had a long losing streak as well. Saints have lost 5 in a row. We know the head coach position is busted. We know the Saints are beat to smithereens on the offensive side of the ball. They are almost putting out a practice squad offense over the last few weeks. Rookie backup quarterback and Spencer Rattler, Chris Olave banged up, Rashid Shaheed out for the year. You're throwing passes to guys named Bub Means and Mason Tipton. Just laughing as you say the names of the receivers that the Saints have at their disposal. I mean, your number one target is a guy named Bub. Shout out Behind the Line on YouTube. Go check him out. He talks politics and sports, and he's clearly a Saints fan, so he has some great rants about it. But I don't want to sit here and just drag the Saints for what they are, because I've done that enough over last season. Definitely done that enough this season, as nothing has changed. The first 2 weeks were a mirage, and it's just flat out sad at this point. The excuses cannot continue to pile up for Dennis Allen. Another horrible showing from the defense. As someone who sat and watched every snap of that game, this is actually the first Saints game that I've ever got up early and walked out of, because they went up 33 to really what would have been 3, but we put up a garbage time touchdown with Jay Kaner after the second scoop and score, fumble, pick six, whatever you want to call it. The defense scored for the Denver Broncos. We were the only 2 people left sitting in our row. We got up and walked out. It was just that bad. And I'm a diehard Saints fan. If you've kept up with me on the show, you know that about me. You know that. I don't walk out of games. I don't turn games off. I might become a little less interested in them, but I try to stay tapped in every moment so I can bring you guys the best content and the best takeaways. It was that bad. Not to mention it was only that bad, but it was also on the Drew Brees Saints Hall of Fame induction night. Drew Brees is clearly bad luck for the Saints whenever he comes to watch them play. They're absolutely winless since he's retired and he's come to the Dome to watch them. That's very unfortunate, but I don't know what else way to put it. I don't know what other way to put it for the New Orleans Saints. You put up an absolutely abysmal performance on the savior, the GOAT of the Saints night in Drew Brees. Just horrible. No real first-team production whatsoever. Sean Payton does what he has to do in order to win this football game. And as a Saints fan, when Sean came out, part of me cheered, part of me booed. I will always respect Sean for what he did for this city. And, if it wasn't for Sean Payton and Drew Brees, and the Saints could still be in sports hell. But we were blessed. The Bensons and Mickey Loomis were able to make things happen at the time that they did. And Sean Payton and Drew Brees became what they did. But also to know that he said his heart was out of it. He left. He went to the Broncos, was out of coaching for a year, and now he's back. So that's where the boos come from. You'll get way more cheers than you will jeers for me with Sean Payton because I understand and respect what he did for this organization. And all we can do is wait for our next Sean Payton and Drew Brees era, wait for our next Sean Payton and Drew Brees figures to show up here. The defense is dead, honestly. The defense is not sharp. They're not fast. You still got DeMario and Marshawn Lattimore and Alontae Taylor and Tyrann Mathieu and Willie Gay and Carl Granderson and all the premier players for your defense on the field. Don't sit here and tell me that Pete Warner would make that much of a difference for the defense because he wouldn't. And let's just call it what it is. This Saints defense has been dead for the last month. The offense, you lose Taysom Hill and you lose your center, and that was the derailing of it. Obviously, we've seen more players go out with Chris Olave, with Rashid Shaheed, with more offensive linemen. Alvin Kamara has been playing with a broken hand since week 5. He's playing with freaking broken ribs for crying out loud. So the Saints are beat to absolute crap. But again, it's not to sit here and talk about how bad we've been because, unfortunately, I didn't expect to win this football game. I think the point I'm trying to get at here is the brutally honest truth of the future of the New Orleans Saints. We have a GM in office that is in complete denial. We've heard him defend Dennis Allen. We know how he defends Dennis Allen. I'm not going to sit here and drag you back through it again. YouTube and Google are a beautiful thing if you want to put yourself back through that. The Saints are convinced that they can still win now. And that is the furthest thing from the case. I will never doubt my favorite team ever wanting to win now because that's the attitude you should have. You're a professional football franchise for a reason. Your goal is to sell tickets, get asses in seats, and drive up ratings because of the results you're putting out. But we have a GM that says good teams, man, good organizations, man, they look beyond the results. I'm not even going to dive deep into that. With the position the Saints are in, it sounds worse, but really what Mickey means is, yes, the record can tell you everything, but you do have to take into account the injuries. But are you taking into account your head coach? Are you taking into account your head coach? I can't even spin it on anything else. Are you taking that into account? The reason the future looks so brutally, I wouldn't even say dark or grim, but again, just the brutally honest truth of the state of the Saints right now. When Mr. Benson passed away, Mickey Loomis was left in Mr. Benson's will. And Mr. Benson said when he passed that the team was going to be left to his wife, the president of the Saints, Dennis Lauscha, and Mickey Loomis would act as the executor, or the problem solver, rather. I know executor is the one who actually executes the will. But if there was a disagreement between Miss Benson and Mr. Lauscha, that Mickey would step in. Mickey was given Mr. Benson's blessing. Dennis Allen also has a chance to have the final say. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. That's totally wrong. Excuse me. Totally wrong name. Not even the right title for what we're going for here. But with Mickey Loomis being left in Mr. Benson's will and the Saints just spiraling to the point that they are, I don't want to sit here and believe that Miss Benson would have to sell the team in order for Mickey Loomis not to be the GM. But in a way, that is almost what it's looking like for the Saints. Does the owner and do the GM have the gumption to do what is needed? To cut bait with some of these players, to have Dennis Allen fired as head coach. Because the Saints were one of the worst organizations in sports before the Sean Payton and Drew Brees era. As we know, that's not a question. A lot of people very nervous, very curious if the Saints are going to be able to get back to a point of winning after the Sean Payton and Drew Brees era. I believe the culture that they set and just the sheer aura that they put off being in this organization, that's rubbed off on others. There will be more leaders and other great players hopefully emerge from that. So I have faith that the Saints can maybe not blossom back to what they were with Sean Payton and Drew Brees, but can at least get back to a era of championship winning football because we've experienced it. Sean Payton was here for 15 years. He had us in contention for about half of those, and he brought us a chip. He took us to 3 NFC title games. Sean did his job. But when he gave the blessing to Dennis Allen is falling short on his promises, losing record as a coach. 26-52, 26-51, 33% winning percentage. We'll just say that because that's what's mattered. In the bottom rankings of coaches that have coached as many games as he has and lost as many games as he has. So it's quite embarrassing. The future of the Saints is quite literally going to fall on Gayle Benson. Because the head coaching is everything for this team right now. It's everything that this team is being subject to. Of course, the injuries are horrible. But if the coaching was better, we probably wouldn't be that upset about the injuries, because look at the way that injuries are affecting a lot of people in the league, and look at how teams are able to overcome it. Now, not everybody can have an Andy Reid at their disposal. Not everybody can try to pivot as well as Kyle Shanahan's trying to do right now with his injuries. Not everybody can necessarily do that, but you have to have competence at the head coaching position. And I hope there's enough of a takeaway for this from you guys, because again, I don't want to sit here and talk about how bad this team is, because we know that. Okay, they're injured on offense, the defense is disappearing, and the head coach is just, he's in over his skis. He is in over his head. That's very clear. But with Mickey Loomis being the general manager of this team, doing the hirings, doing the firings, having that influence in the draft, really believing that they can still win now, believing that Dennis Allen can be it, you have to look at the results, not beyond the results. The future of the Saints can be brutally honest for this team in the coming years. They're not really at a cap hell until 2026. They've got some bad contracts with veteran players that people are very curious if they can offload. And it's going to be make or break for the future of this franchise. Not make or break season by season, but like each move that's made over these next few seasons is really going to lay out the next decade or so for the New Orleans Saints. And it's always been out of the fans' hands. It's really out of the players' hands. It's up to that front office and the ownership of the team. And that's where we've always said it's really mattered and it's really important. Now, speaking of one of the veterans that the Saints decided to keep around, we learned that the Saints extend Alvin Kamara on a 2-year, $24.5 million deal with over $22 million guaranteed. So Kamara is going to be getting all of his money. And you could take one of two positions on this. Here go the Saints again, signing an aging player who's also a running back to almost market value. Or here go the Saints paying one of their few players who's producing, who is willing to play this season without a contract extension, and you do right by your players. Because Alvin Kamara, as we sit, is the all-time leader in total touchdowns for the Saints, rushing touchdowns for the Saints, total touchdowns scored, by the way. Obviously, we know Drew Brees has a plethora, hundreds and hundreds of touchdown passes with the Saints, but touchdowns scored by certain player. He scored 85 times. He's the all-time leader in total touchdowns. He's the all-time leader in rushing touchdowns. He's the all-time leader in scrimmage yards. And he's the all-time leader in all-purpose yards. He's also only 233 yards away from becoming the Saints' all-time leading rusher and passing Mark Ingram, who's got 6,500 yards as a rusher for the New Orleans Saints, which again is the franchise record. Alvin Kamara is all over the record books for the New Orleans Saints, and I'm grateful that we re-signed him because I get to keep wearing this number 41 jersey, which is one of my favorite jerseys to wear. He's one of my favorite Saints that I've ever witnessed. And a lot of diehards will tell you that. I love that number 41 gets to stay in the black and gold, and I think we did right by him. Kamara wants to retire a Saint. He knows that if he took the black and gold off, he does not think he would get the same appreciation elsewhere. He's got the Kamara King Crunch cereal. He has leaned into this fan base. He loves this city. The city loves him. He loves that city. I live in Georgia, but speaking of, Louisiana, New Orleans, he loves that city. That city loves him. He's embraced that city. He knows as a third-round running back out of Tennessee, jumping into a Saints team that was off 3 straight 7-9 years and coming in and winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. Having 1,300 scrimmage yards, having 1,500 scrimmage yards and 13 touchdowns, having over 4,000 yards receiving as a running back for the New Orleans Saints, being a true dual threat running back for New Orleans. So I don't think it's a question of if Kamara deserved his money or not. Now, yes, you see the production over the last couple of years. You become kind of questionable. Take a look at Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael, because I believe Kubiak has gotten Kamara restored to a pretty decent role this year, and the production is looking nice. Again, Alvin Kamara is playing with a broken hand that he suffered in week 5. He's playing with broken ribs. His back hurts. His hip hurts. We know all of these guys are hurt, right? There's probably a lot of guys out there playing with injuries. But knowing at his position, at the running back position, that's tough. That's very tough. Constantly getting banged up on. Ton of touches in the NFL. Ton of touches in the games that you're going to be in. But you can also look on the flip side and say the Saints are still convinced that they can win now. The Saints are still possibly hanging on to the Drew Brees, Sean Payton era because of extending an older guy like Kamara, who not only was one of the few players that had somewhat of a tradable contract since it was running out this year, but also was still producing. So he had trade value as well. And the Saints locked him up. I was a little surprised because, I thought the end of Kamara's days were approaching just because of simply where the team is going. And knowing that the team doesn't have a lot of money. Again, they're $85 million over the cap, $81 million over the cap. Trying to remember correctly. It was a good move from New Orleans because it was a faithful move, and we know that the Saints do run this football team like a family more than a business at times. So in that aspect, I wasn't surprised. And in that aspect, I do think it was deserved because, again, he's the all-time Saints leader in total touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, scrimmage yards, all-purpose yards, and he's less than 250 yards away from being the all-time leader in rushing yards. Just right behind Mark Ingram. Over 4,200 yards receiving as a running back for this team. So his production has been there. But it does make you think about the fact that he is an older running back. He got a deal that is right in line with elite running back money, but we know that Kamara can be that guy. He's shown us that before. At one point, Alvin Kamara was the best running back in the NFL, and I loved sporting that title. I loved boom and zoom between Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. It was quite beautiful. It was great. So, I don't have a problem with the extension, but it is a double-edged sword. The Saints are still convinced that they can win now, but they're not just a running back and Alvin Kamara away from that or an extension with him away from that. He probably does hit the open market next year and doesn't get as much. Maybe takes a Derrick Henry type deal, $7 million, $8 million, but, he wants to continue to be able to chase that ring. Not even being a ring chaser, but he wants to be able to chase that ring. Kamara said it himself. He's done well off the field. So, he doesn't have to make the most money on the field. He's very thankful for that. He said he's very blessed for that, and I'm happy for him as well. I don't know. It's not even a loss for words. It was just surprising on a couple of different aspects. Because, again, he earned it. He earned the payday. Maybe not within recent years, but maybe this is an instance of the Saints looking beyond the results. But I want to give a big thank you to Alvin Kamara. I want to give a huge shout out to AK-41, one of my favorite Saints players of all time, because you know that it's been rough, especially the last couple of seasons. I'm sure you have an awareness and idea of where the team is at currently, financially, front office wise, personnel wise. and you still want to stick it out here, bro. And I just want you to know, as a diehard New Orleans Saints fan, and I'm sure I can say this on behalf of the entire city of New Orleans, we appreciate you for sticking with us, because moves like that are the reason why the black and gold remember you forever. And even if Kamara did hit the open market, like I was saying, maybe the Bills should have made a move for him, because Kamara was he just wasn't the guy that he was. And of course, when you don't have Sean and Drew, that's going to make that feel very different. But thank you, Alvin, from the bottom of my heart, for sticking in New Orleans, for sticking with the Saints, for wanting to continue to put that fleur-de-lis on and represent this team from start to finish in your career. And I can't wait to have you as a Saint for life, if that's what you see in the cards for yourself, bro. So the Saints extend Alvin Kamara to a 2-year, $24.5 million deal with over $22 million guaranteed. A little bit of a couple of meanings here. I'll leave it up to your interpretation to decide what this could actually mean for the New Orleans Saints. I appreciate everybody jumping into episode 77 of the NFL with AJL. Again, you could have been anywhere else in the world on a Wednesday, but you were tapped in with us on the show. We tapped into, chopped up, UGA upsetting Texas, Tennessee, and Alabama. DeAndre Hopkins traded to the Chiefs. You guys heard me talk about my Saints every week, like I always like to do on the show. Please, before we get out of here, y'all make sure to like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Share the stream wherever you may be watching. Get at us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, Rumble, any of the social media platforms out there. Please make sure you also, trying to find my finger there, to the notification, or to the notification bell. Hit the bell so you never miss a post on YouTube, no matter what type of post it is. QR code will give you every bit of social media and podcast content at the NFL with AJL on all social media and podcast platforms. Of course, as always, we're sponsored by Buy and Sell with AJL and at PrayStation Online. I love you guys. I need you guys. I appreciate you guys for all the support. Go ahead and drop a super chat or a super thanks here on YouTube if you want to donate directly to the show, or DM me on social media if you'd like to donate to the podcast as well.